Okay. I think we're ready to start making the drawer components. So this is the drawer for the nightstand that we're going to be making. It uses a through dovetail joint here, which I think is kind of classy looking. You see the ends of the tails here on the front, and so it's kind of a nice little touch to the drawer. The dovetail joint itself consists of two different parts. Okay, we have tails that we cut first, and we have pins that we cut second, and this is what they look like. I don't know if you can see that on the video there. So the tail is what we cut first, and that's the part that actually looks like a dove's tail or a bird's tail or something. The pins are what the tails fit into. Okay, so we're going to cut the tails first. The tails are found on the drawer sides, and the pins are found on the drawer fronts. All right, and then it kind of creates that mechanical locking joint that works so well. Okay, this is our dovetail jig that we're going to be using here. We're using two different routers. We're using one router that's set up with a dovetail shaped bit that we're going to be using first to cut our drawer sides. And the second one that just has a straight bit that we're going to be using to hog out the material in between the pins when we cut our drawer front. Okay, we're going to set that up in a minute. First thing you guys have to do is adjust the spacing that you want. Okay, so we've already got this set up here for Jeremy's drawer. So we're going to set this up. We're going to set his side first, because we've said that we're going to cut the tails first. The tails happen in our drawer sides. Label which side you want to have facing out, right? And for our sides, we're actually going to turn that in. Okay, this is really important to remember. Otherwise, if you got some nice grain that you want exposed, it's not going to happen if you do it backwards. Okay, so the side that you want out, turn that in. It goes up in here, right up till it's touching the underside of the comb, which is what we call this set of fingers here, and right up so that it's square against the two side pins. Okay, so right up nice and snug. You can adjust this if your thicknesses of your pieces vary a little bit, which I'm anticipating they will. So just make sure you have the correct, it's kind of a good snug tension here. You don't need to reef on it, just nice and snug. And this is where then you're going to adjust the spacing. You can choose more or less amounts of tails if you like. It doesn't really matter. I personally like a symmetrical pattern, so you can just use a number 2 Robertson and adjust the spacing here. Once you've done that, we're actually going to loosen these two brass nuts here, flip this comb around. So the cool thing about this jig is that the spacing never changes, but when we do the two different processes, we just have to flip this thing around. So we're going to set, I'll give you guys a hand with this, but basically we're going to set the depth here for this. And I've kind of got this worked out for what works given the size of the cutters and stuff like that. So as long as we're square, we're good. Okay? So now what we see here is a set of grooves where I'm going to be running the router into, and the guide bushing on the router is going to run along these fingers. Okay? I'm going to be running the router in wherever there's a rounded corner on the pin. So I'm going to be cutting out right here. If you can kind of get in here, Jeremy, and just sort of see exactly where I'm going to cut out. Okay, so I'm going to be making basically four plunges in this drawer side. All right, so I'm going to be coming in here. I'm going to be coming in here. I'm going to skip over that middle because that's basically one large tail. I'm going to come in here and come in here. Okay, I'm going to take slow, smooth cuts. We're taking a lot of depth here at a time. We're taking a full depth cut all at once. So we need to travel very slow and smooth with this, okay? We're going to keep the router dead flat on top of this comb, and I'm even going to hold the router, I'm even going to kind of use my palms and hold the router to kind of help stabilize it. I need to set the depth of the router. Okay, so with a through dovetail, this is actually pretty simple. We're going to take the board that the joint is adjacent to, so in this case the front, put the board right up underneath here, like that, so that it's flush. And put a line, just with your pencil, draw a line just like that. Actually, oops, there we go. And then you're going to take the router, okay? Make sure that the router is unplugged at this time, because we're going to be adjusting it. Right, we're going to take the router right on there, and I'm going to adjust the depth of the cutter right down exactly to that line. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that collar off. And there we go. Okay, so I've adjusted the router depth right down to the line that I made that was underneath that board. Okay, so now I can make sure that the router's switched off, because I'm going to plug this thing in, and if someone has left it in the on position, it's going to fire up right away, which is really quite dangerous. Okay, so we're going to turn this on. Safety glasses and earmuffs are an absolute must on this machine. All right. Once the router's engaged with this machine, we're going to cut all the locations and then turn the machine off and let it stop before we take the router out. Okay, this is actually potentially a pretty dangerous thing to be doing, just because the router is very unforgiving. It's got that big old cutter exposed at the bottom there, right? It's a little messy, so wear something you don't mind getting some wood shavings on. And here we go. Okay, I'm going to put the router on here. I'm going to hold on to it with a real good grip while I turn this thing on, because that torque happens. Okay, so just hang on to it and control it until it stops, and you can put it back in the rack. And there we have our tails cut in our sideboard. Okay, now of course with the drawer, we're only going to have a dovetail joint cut on the front, so the back we can just leave for now. Okay, so there are our tails cut in the front end of the drawer side, and they look good. Okay, so now we're going to put our drawer front in, and this time we want to have the face that you want to be showing on the very front of your drawer. We want to have that facing out. All right, so that goes in exactly the same way. Okay, right up to the underside of the fingers, right along the side of the pins. This time we're going to flip this over. And again, I'll help you guys set the depth here. This time the depth of this actually controls how tight the joint fit will be. Okay, so this is actually a fairly crucial adjustment, and I will help you with this. Okay, so here we go with that one. I'm going to do the same thing on the pencil. So I'm going to take my drawer side, put it up underneath here, scribe a line. That indicates the depth of the piece that it's going to interact with. And I'm going to take my other router now with a straight bit and set that in here. And I'm going to adjust the height of this one as well. Okay, so right down just to that baseline. And this time, exactly the same thing. I'm going to cut this time inside where the tapered fingers are. So right here, this whole piece right in here, and right in here. Okay, so not on the outsides. I'm going to take very slow passes, working my way in from the front till I reach the back, and then I'm going to do a cleanup cut along the sides of the fingers. Okay, so again, making sure this thing is in the off position before I plug it in. we go. Okay, hold that there till it stops. So now we can pull this out and check our fit. If we've done it right. Our fit's actually a little bit, it's slightly on the snug side. All right, so what we'll do is we'll just go back and readjust this comb inward slightly just to take a little bit more out of the pins. It's a little tighter than what we want, but it's actually not that bad. Okay, so there we have our dovetail joint, and of course you'll do the same process with your opposite side before we change it to do the front like I've shown you guys here. All right. Safety-wise with the routers, just again make sure you leave that switch in the off position before you plug it in. Make sure you're holding onto that thing really well, because if it drops down, I mean it gets kind of ugly. That's it. There's our joint.